Aloha everyone, we are back with the 7th series. We interviewed for you surf legend, world champion, surf photographers, shapers, and many more. We hope you like the series, and please stay tuned for more amazing news. Mahalo. Aloha, welcome to the 15th episode of the 7th series of the Temple of Surf, the podcast. Today with us from France, a big surf rider, Peyo Lizarazu. We discuss with him about surfboards, surfing in France, and much more. Aloha, Peyo. Welcome to the show. Where are you today?
Today, I'm home on the French side of the Basque Country. So I'm in France, but in this little corner of France in the southwest, facing the Atlantic, called the Basque Country, because we have the French part of the Basque Country, and that's where I live and where I was born, and where I'm still lucky to live now.
Yeah, it's an amazing place, isn't it? Not only because of the waves, obviously, but much more than that, right?
Yeah, we have good waves. We always wish we could have more, better, but it's not too bad. And yes, there's a really good environment with many more things, mountains, countryside, some cities, and yeah, it's a nice part of the world where to be based and born and still living.
So today we're going to talk about many things. We're going to talk about, of course, your book that has been just released, but we talk about big waves, your career. But the first question that I ask everybody on the show is, what is the most important thing in surfing, in your opinion?
The most important thing is to really enjoy, but to enjoy, I think I was told since my very young childhood that, do things fully, don't do things halfway. And it took me many decades of practice of surfing to understand a lot of the deeper meanings around surfing, and surfing is a very special sport for me and for a lot of people that do practice at a good level. You understand that, it requires dedication, but once you're on the wave, it took me many years to realize how it's a very complex feeling to be on a wave, and how you are fully concentrated and at the same time so disconnected. And that's, I think, one of the beauty of surfing, and why I'm saying just simply enjoy each moment, and all the benefits, whether it's full concentration or total disconnection at the same time, which is something very unique, I think, in surfing.
Okay, I was thinking about the question. I don't know if I say it right, but do you think it's possible? It should be to enjoy, but at the same time, like you said, like to do it completely. I mean, what I wanted to say is like there is a lot of athletes, that they do it at professional level, and then they say like the competition is too much. I don't enjoy anymore, so I step out of competition. How the two things balance, in your opinion?
I mean, what you had here in the discussion beyond the enjoyment is high-level competition / professionalism. And I can relate to some of those professionals. I can relate in what they say, not in what they've done. I've never been a professional surfer myself. I've been taking care of professional surfers. I've had a fairly good level of surfing, but I've never been professional. But I know the commitment it requires to perform at high level. I know it from my personal experience, because I was trained to be a professional rugby player in my life. I've performed at some good level in surfing, and I've seen and I've watched my brother, who was a soccer player, perform at high level. It's a lot of dedication, and to answer to your question by giving a small story. I was one day a few years ago, almost 10 years ago now, more 15 years ago. I was in Chopu for the contest. It was still called the WCT. I don't remember who won back then, but Kelly was there, everybody was there. And what really surprised me, without surprising me, is the fact that after the final, the waves were so fantastic. Surfers went back in the water, including the finalists. And as I said many times, I've never seen my brother go back on the pitch to play football after winning the World Cup, which he won, and we are right now recording this as the World Cup is happening in Qatar. He won the World Cup in 1998. They didn't play after that game.
Yeah.
And that is what is special to surfing. But yes, can high-level professional athletes can get bored? Yes, because competitive surfing is restrictive. But that's also why I think a lot of those surfers could give up competitive surfing, but they cannot give up surfing. While, again, going back to what I see very closely, my brother, he doesn't play football anymore. I mean, he commentates, but he loves surfing, he loves skiing. And yes, surfing is this very special thing which you can do fully committed, whatever your level is, whether you are Kelly Slater or whether you are a beginner. And what I'm saying about being committed, it's because it's the best way to really, I think, enjoy and make the most out of your time, whether you need to improve or learn, or whether, you have a good level and you should simply enjoy and forget about the problems that are on the beach. When you're in the water and you enjoy the moment. But I do relate about how sometimes, professional athletes in any sports and in the sports of surfing, sometimes there's this burden, okay, I don't find myself interested anymore with those competitions. Is it the competitive aspect only? Maybe contests could have different formats. I mean, there's a world tour, it exists. Not all extreme sports have the chance to have a proper tour, where we can all agree that the best surfer is usually winning. There are all sorts of critics about the tour today, and I can understand some of them, but it exists. And whether we like it or not, I don't think there's any doubt about the fact that the world champions are usually the best surfers.
Yeah, and we cannot please everybody, right? So it's like the body.
Yeah, you can never please everybody. And I'm saying this, as I don't really watch contests anymore, but of course I follow on results. I'm more of a doer instead of a watcher, but I know about the contest because that watching what was happening and helping some of those athletes has been part of my career. So I was always interested. But yeah, I don't think contest makes the biggest part of my surf story. And what I'm interested in is more all those other stories that are not related to contest.
But I think what you said is like finding that space that it's only yourself and the wave, right? And
it's rarely yourself and the wave nowadays.
Not the mental space, not the physical space. At least in the mental space, you are alone. Hopefully.
Yeah. Well, again, it's a very special balance to find between the physical, mental space, and you're never really alone, and you shouldn't. Being in the ocean alone is the recipe to drama. It's very nice to surf alone, but if a problem occurs, whatever the problem is, there's nobody to help you. And really, personally, but I think it's the same for any surfers. I've had the chance to surf remote places, but I really would rather, without any doubt, to be in the water with some good friends, having to give one or two waves instead of being alone and having all the waves just by myself.
No, definitely. At least you can tell stories that people can relate to. Otherwise,
Yes, exactly.
otherwise you will catch you will surf the wave, the best one in your life, but nobody will believe you because you were alone. But when I had the opportunity, the privilege to interview some of the biggest, let's say, big wave riders, at least at that time, back in the 67, 70s, like Greg Knoll, like Fred Hemmings, like Joey Cabell. And okay, the definition of big wave changes, okay, compared to today. So we have to put everything in perspective, right? So that time was big. And they were telling me that one common thing that they told me is that they were looking always for a friend
Yep.
to go out because
Yep.
it was dangerous. The surfboards were whatever they were able to create. They were heavy. They were not like as today. There was no safety. There was nobody with a jet ski coming
Oh, yeah.
to pick them up, and so for
It
them,
was safety. It was the people that could provide you help. It was another type of safety. In the end, it was the same safety. It was human being. Today there are more tools to support, but it was a jet ski alone will not save anyone. Between having a jet ski or a human being, I'd rather have a human being to keep me safe. But ideally, you want to have someone and a jet ski. That's for sure.
oh yes,
But it has crazily improved, over the last few decades, and over the last few years. The level of commitment into big waves, but also the level of safety and safety equipment has drastically increased, and I think it goes together without a doubt, from my point of view, at least.
allows to push the limit higher and higher and higher, right? The things that we can do today because of the
Yep.
equipment allows you also to go for bigger waves, no?
Yeah. But again, it's not just equipment; it's the people around, and the human factor in any safety-related discussion is the most important factor. Of course, now there are the inflatable vests, there are all sorts of things, but if you don't have human beings around you to help you, you will get in trouble, whether it's 1 foot or 50 foot.
And you had a situation like that where a human being really, really helped you to overcome a big trouble.
I've always, in very extreme conditions, I've always tried to really play cautious. But of course, you expose yourself. And if I could maybe relate to one crazy case where I really got my ass kicked and I was lucky that someone was to help me, yeah, maybe it would be in Chopu. In Chopu in July 2011. It was very special days. Yeah, it's been maybe 10 years that I was going to Chopu and Tahiti for almost on a yearly basis. The first time I went to Tahiti was in 2000. And Chopu was a quiet place back then. Still is, but a bit less. So I was able to get, my rhythm with the wave over many trips. But in July 2011, I randomly ended up going to Tahiti. It was actually not for a surfing trip. It was related to that, but I was not going there for surfing. And a huge swell came the day I arrived. And the following morning, I got my biggest wave ever at Chopu, towing with Raimana. I knew Chopu pretty well, but never before had I seen Chopu in those conditions. And after getting a really good wave, I went in the water with my stand-up and with some of the paddlers to try to get the sets in between, because without any doubt, the biggest one were not makeable. And I got some good ones until I fall off. And I fall off on a medium one, but unfortunately for me, there was one of the second biggest set of the morning behind. And I was really on the wrong spot at the wrong time. in what is being called the West Ball. And I was not ready for that. And I took the wrong decision, but the water pushed me in the safe zone. But I was trying to go back out and to swing back out, which is not what you should be doing at Chopo. Yeah, I was lucky. The jet ski was there to pick me up in the end. I think the hardest part was really big luck, and the current pushed me in the right direction. But yeah, it would have been very sketchy had I been alone in that moment.
There was another case where actually I felt lucky to be saved by someone, but I felt it after. It was in Hawaii. It was in Macau. Macau is a very special place, and I've been very lucky to be very warmly welcome over there. The first time I went to Hawaii, actually, I was in Macau. I was with some young sponsored athletes from Quicksilver, including Jeremy Flores, who was 9 years old for his first trip to Hawaii. And we had the World Championship, the World Junior Championship contest there. And they were not too happy not to be on the North Shore, but that's another story. Anyhow, I've done a lot of trips to Macau until this winter of 2016, where I was in Hawaii for the ADI Cow, as we were releasing the Quicksilver and Aqualung inflatable vests on which I'd been working for 2 years. I was around for the contest, and there was the first missed 80 day where the contest was cancelled at the last minute. And after that, there were a few days of big storms. And a lot of people from the North Shore came to Macau to surf some pretty big waves. You know, I would call that, without a doubt, 15 to 20 foot surf in Macau. A lot of the competitors from the 80 were there. And I've been to Macau many years, and I know the sport pretty well in different sizes. It was the first time I would really surf it that big. But I was really confident. We had our inflatable vest. And I was with my friend Kamagi Worthington, a really good surfer from the North Shore. He's a fireman as well. He's a stand-up surfer. We first met in the final of the contest at Sunset in 2010. And since then, we stayed very close. And on that day, well, there were a lot of the 80 competitors, the young guys that came to Macau, the Florence brothers and so on and so on. And I remember paddling out with Kamagi and said, "Follow me." And we went further to the point. And we got some good waves, really good waves. One stage, I got the ball on my face, and Brian, who was making safety on his ski with his daughter, came to me in like 5 seconds. I really didn't need help. But I was really happy he was there. And then I realized that had I been in trouble, maybe I would have been in big trouble. If Brian hadn't been there. So yeah, these are not just one, but two special moments where I was lucky there was someone to take care of me.
But thank you for sharing. And what I was thinking as well is my next question is what it takes to surf Chopu. I mean, there will be Olympic Games coming up in 2024, and a lot of athletes from all over the world will go from surfing in Japan, let's say, from an Olympic perspective, to surfing in Chopu. So they went like from, with all the respect to the Japanese friends, zero to like one of the best wave of the entire planet. So as you surfed there over there, what it takes to surf those waves?
Uh, you know, like any wave with commitment, or with like any wave which require commitments, I think only few people can really handle those waves properly from the first time. You know, it took me many trips at different sizes to really understand and gradually learn Chopo. And today, Chopo is a must-have on your curriculum as a surfer when you're at a top level. And I think it takes time. I was lucky really to go to Tahiti for the first time in 2000. I wish I'd gone earlier. Tahiti is a part of France, and there's a lot of really close links between surfers from Tahiti and surfers from France, what is being called the Hexagon, this little part of Europe. There's been exchanged trips for decades between different generations, but it took me a bit too long time to go to Tahiti, and the first time was 2000. Let's say that to go to Chopo, yeah, if you are patient enough, I think you will find your time. I was not able to have this chance with other spots that are world class, like Pipeline. I could not be patient enough. Maybe I didn't have the level. I think I could have had the technical level, but getting a wave at Pipeline is a really crazy experience where you have to be very, very patient. And I didn't have that time. I've never been a professional surfer. My job, I've been working for Quicksilver for 25 years, was to take care of surfers for maybe 5 or 6 years. And that included some trips in Hawaii, but I was not there to be a surfer myself. Of course, I tried to surf a little bit, but getting a wave at Pipeline requires a lot of patience, which when I started going to Chopo, you had to be patient, but more to get to learn the wave more than to get a space in the crowd. And that was luxury. I think those Olympic surfers will have the chance to adjust.
Of course, there may be competitors to the 2024 Olympics of surfing in Chopo coming from countries that may have a more limited surfing culture, to speak politely. And that is the beauty of the Olympics. But having said that, there will be, without a doubt, no surfers that will be out of place there. I will be very surprised.
In the end, what will be very interesting more than the level of the people will be to see what type of conditions will be for the contest. Because even though the Olympics are happening in July, and even though July and August is the full winter in the southern hemisphere, there's not always waves. And it will be sad. It will be very sad, but it can happen. I think the organizers are starting to realize that the waiting period they had in mind a few months back may have been too restrictive. And hopefully they will widen a little bit that waiting period just to make sure that there are proper waves. It would be very sad if there was not at least one day of contest in a nice Chopo. What is a nice Chopo is another question. Is it 6 foot, 8 foot plus? Perfect. Is it 10, 12 foot plus? For the Olympic competition, I think I know my answer. But personally, I prefer when it's a little bit bigger.
Okay, but yes, of course, has to be big wave, right? But not necessarily. I mean, is
No. Chopo, when it gets on size, it's a different animal. It's a different animal, and that's what I think the Olympic world still hasn't understood. A running track is a running track, and it usually doesn't move.
usually
A swimming pool is a swimming pool, and the water is usually the same. A football pitch is a football pitch. A tennis court is a tennis court. I mean, I could go on and go on and go on. And, the decision has been made to have the Olympics at Chopo, which I think is fantastic for the sport of surfing. I don't think it is fantastic for the athletes, to be honest, from my point of view. And I've never been an athlete at the Olympics, but from what I understand, a big part of the Olympic for an athlete is to be surrounded with all the other athletes. And well, at Chopo in 2024, the surfers will be almost 24 hours flight from Paris, in a very nice village that most of them have known for years and years, and they will be on their own. Hopefully, they will have good surf.
Yeah.
But the Olympic experience will be very special. I know because I'm still close with some of the French surfers, and after the contest during the Tokyo Olympics, they all went to the main village, and they were like, "Wow,"
Yeah.
And I'm sure maybe some of them will fly back to Paris, but it was not just like the 2 hours drive they had to do from the surf site for the Olympics in Tokyo to the main site in the city. We are speaking now about a 24-hour flight. But that's the choice that has been made. Hopefully good for surfing. For surfers, maybe it will be a very limited experience as an Olympic competitor.
Yeah.
But c'est la vie.
C'est la vie. Of course, they could have chosen something closer, like of the Basque countries. There are plenty of waves of any kind. But
if we try to be rational about all of this, because it's been a drama, and that's the beauty of France. Tide is France, and it's in the southern hemisphere. And in July, in the southern hemisphere, it's winter, so you have more chance to have more waves. Biarritz, Lacanau, or Brest, which are in what we call the hexagon, mainland France. Well, July is the summer. And yes, you can have good waves in the summer, but usually it's not the time where you have the best waves. For me, there was no doubt that the best option was none of the options that were discussed for location.
What was the best option then?
Paris.
Pool.
It's obvious. For me, it's obvious. But, there are other constraints, I think, and other criterias that have been part of the equation to decide about surfing in the Olympics in Paris. And I think from my point of view, surfing has been instrumentalized a little bit, to show that, we can do some sport in their natural environment. But, what is natural about a skate park, a snowboarding halfpipe, a running track, or a kayaking stadium? Olympic surfers at Chopo will not be able to connect much, if any, with other athletes from other sports. It is sad, as this connection between sports seems to be an important part of the Olympic experience for an athlete. Is surfing in a wave park the same as surfing in the ocean? No, obviously not. But wave park can allow anyone from any country to learn, practice, and why not win a gold medal at the Olympics one day? But of course, it will take more than winning in a wave pool to become a real surfer. And this should be seen as an opportunity to put a stick in the ground and say, well, this is surfing. And surfing in a pool is different from surfing in the ocean. Maybe competitive surfing in artificial wave pools should be called Olympic surfing. The same way in kayak, for example, you've got freestyle in rivers where, those kayakers do those crazy big 100-foot jumps. And then you have the Olympic kayakers, and it's a totally different animal. They are in those kayaking stadium, sometimes half natural rivers, but most of the time, they are artificially made rivers and basins with concrete wall.
Anyway, after France, there will be Los Angeles. So we are looking forward to see Los Angeles will be for sure in the ocean, right? I mean, we will see. Then it's like an amazing place.
Yes, California will be a different story, a totally different story, because Los Angeles is a coastal town, while Paris is not. Then you have the weather. Both cities are in the northern hemisphere, and the Olympics usually take place in July, as we know. But summer in California and summer in France is different. where in California, well, you can have a wide exposure to all sorts of swell coming from the south, coming from west, coming from north. While in France, had the Olympics taken place in mainland France, well, you have a much now opportunities of swell, even though there's surf in the summertime in France as well. So yeah, the question will be, well, will the discussion about pool have matured enough to be addressed properly? I really hope. Again, as I said earlier, what is natural about those kayaking stadium? Why surfing cannot be done in a pool for the Olympic? Maybe competitive surfing in a pool could be Olympic surfing. Like this, we will make a clear difference between what surfing is in a pool, what it brings, especially in the context of the Olympics with TV broadcasting to different countries. And it will allow to make a clear difference between surfing in a pool and surfing in the ocean, which we all know is very different and requires all sorts of skills and experience, which no one will ever learn in a pool. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. But first it will be Chopo, and it will be hopefully a fantastic show and display of surfing to the world. Let's hope the conditions will be really good.
I get what you want to say, and definitely there are a lot of things to be taken into consideration when the decision are being taken.
If we go back to safety, all those topics, even though it's surfing, it's very simple. If you try to look at any discussion from a rational point of view, it requires some in-depth thinking. It's not just about, hey, is it good or not good to have a pool?
Yeah.
There's so many variables in any discussion. If you want to take the discussion seriously, just like anything, sustainability. I mean, I can hear so many people speaking about so many things, but all those topics are usually very complex, and it's very rare to listen to someone elaborate an argument that really takes or try to take care of all the real criteria.
For what matters, when I did a mini series for the Tokyo Olympics with 5 surfers or 4 surfers, and then was also Fernando Guerre. At that time, everybody from the surfer side, they told me like we always prefer to do it in the ocean. Then I don't know if like it was a kind of false true, we don't know, but nevertheless. There is a connection between a surfer and water, ocean water, that cannot be denied. And then, as we said at the really beginning of this interview, we cannot please them all, right?
No, for sure. But the Olympics is about fairness. It's a show, and there's what they call this level playing field.
Yeah.
And and in that regard, well, surfing is very different from many other sports in the Olympics. If you do it in the ocean.
Totally agree. So there is a question that I always ask, but I think in the context of your book is very relevant, because your book is called Le Vie du Surf, no? The Life of Surf.
Yeah, well, Lives of Surf, in the plural.
Yeah, plural.
The book is only available in French for now. There could be hopefully one day an English version. But yeah, Vie de Surf in the plural, so Lives of Surfers.
Lives of Surf.
In which, I was asked to speak a little bit about my life, but, more importantly, I wanted to speak about the life of some of those people I was able to connect along the path, and along the different trips I was able to do, either on a personal level or on a professional level. And I've had the chance to meet some very special people, some of them known, some of them less known, and I just wanted to shed the personal light. And that's really what is behind the title, Vida Surf.
And exactly that was my question, because the question that I ask everybody, if is in their life they met one surfer, famous or not, that one meeting that was particularly meaningful for them. And today, when I was preparing this interview, and I was watching at some interview that you have done before, I connected that it was plural. So my French accent, levis de surf, so plural. And where you talk not only about yourself, but you talk about other people. So now, with this introduction, was there one meeting that was more meaningful than all the others, that even maybe you didn't even describe inside the book?
No, I mean, there were many meetings and many people, but Hawaii is a special place in the world of surfing, and I was lucky to meet some very special people in Hawaii. The Keolana family, but because maybe he had a very big impact in France. If I had to choose one person, maybe that could be Laird Hamilton.
Okay.
Because I had this attraction to big wave surfing, and I was very much impressed with watching Laird and Buzzy and Derek Dorner and Kalama develop those technique around big wave surfing and tow-in surfing, and they were sponsored by a French brand, which were promoting them a lot in France. And we could hear a lot about all that group. So it clearly had an impact on me, and as a young man, and then I was able to connect on a personal level many times. That's actually why Laird is one of the 3 person that I've reached out for forward in the book, and he wrote a very nice forward. And yes, he's a very special human being. I think a lot of things have been said about Laird. I think he's brutally honest, very curious, and I can relate a lot to those qualities.
Fantastic. And I think is I don't know him personally, right? But being a waterman is what makes the difference, right? It's like it's not just a big wave surfer, It's a 360 all around, It's like I don't know, John, or like those people that they have much more than one connection with the ocean, right?
Yep.
Or they have only one, and then it goes all around, right? I guess is super important. And yes, so it was I didn't interview Laird Hamilton yet, but I interviewed Budsy Carbox, and he was very interesting. Even he did a book. He did a book, and it was very, very interesting to discover all the adventures that these 2-person surfers have done.
I met Buzzy a fair bit. I really knew Laird. I met Dave Kalama before that, because at one stage of his career, he was sponsored by Quicksilver, and I was running the team for Quicksilver in Europe. So whenever Dave would come to Europe, I would spend time with him. And that's how actually I got to buy my first towboard. And now I got to learn the art of surfing with canoes and a lot of things. But yeah, then I met Laird through Jeff Ackman, and I met Buzzy in the later stage of my life when I started doing stand-up paddles surfing and doing the contest in Hawaii. Buzzy was interested in the art of surfing those big boards with a paddle, and he ended up being a judge on the world tour.
Okay.
And I always enjoy discussing with him. I was able to make a few finals, and I know he was always keeping a very nice, he always had nice things to say about my surfing, and I knew who he was, and I was really proud about that.
Okay. Couple of last question, and then we conclude the episode. What does it take to be a big wave surfer?
Oh, takes time, patience. And yeah, like anything, just to be a surfer, being a big wave surfer is high performance. And like any high performance type of surfing or any high performance type of sport, it requires a lot of work and dedication because the waves are not always there, because you have to train. So, of course, you can speak about technical skills and gift and so on, but it takes, effort and dedication, really, more than skills.
I guess if you don't have that, you cannot succeed in general in life on many things, right?
Exactly.
It's something very common, but in the specific, when the elements of a surfer that becomes like important, huge, and more dangerous, you want to say, that is even harder, not to keep control.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
And if we look like next in innovation of big wave surfing, so we discussed a little bit before about few innovations that have been done, for instance, in safety, in big wave riding. What do you see the bar being pulled? Do you see it still like there is a huge jump, like from the time, if we are talking about Laird Hamilton and Bugsy Kerbox, when they started to do the towing, that it's a huge innovation, if you want to say, right? That allows to surf. There is still that space nowadays of innovation, or do you think?
Like any innovation, sometime, you can try to figure out what could happen in 5 or 10 years, but sometimes it's very hard to even think about what could happen in 1 or 2 years, and on the same time, having said that, for me, one of the major breakthrough innovation that I think will still have to show the full extent of the improvement it's going to bring, it's foiling, surf-foil. But surf-foil is not new. Surf-foil, I think, was invented by Italian engineers during the Second World War or before the Second World War as a tool for military vessels. It was then, used by sailors for races, and it really took 2 or 3 other decades to come into the world of surfing after having been in the world of windsurfing and so on and so on. I'm a fan of surf-foiling, and we are working very hard to implement this in big waves because it has a lot of benefits. When you're on big waves, you are surfing at very high speed, and whatever little chop and end up like a big mogul, like you do skiing at high speed on icy slope. Well, that is what surfing on big waves is. It's really violent. And foiling in that regard, because you are 20, 30, 50 centimeters above water on that special fin, which is connected with the water, it can allow you to, I think, surf even crazier lines on big waves. Laird has spoken about it a little bit. He's starting doing it. Kai is also doing it. We are a small group of people doing it in Europe, and we are still working on finding the right equipment and the right compromise, not just on the equipment but on the settings, because you have to do surf-foil to understand all the compromise you have to make in your settings. But I think, there will be some other bars, I think, that will be barriers that will be broken with the surf-foiling in big waves. And it's not just about surfing huge waves. I think it can allow to surf very big waves, but it will allow you to surf big waves on very long distance in open ocean. I think it can really change the perception of what the action of surfing is. For anyone interested into surfing on a complete range and not just shortboard or not just longboard, foiling is opening a lot of space in small wave to very big wave.
It's amazing how surf looks like old sport. If we go back to the Hawaiian royalties, but in reality, no, because we're back from the mid '60s to now, and still, when you were explaining, I was thinking about the absorption, shock absorption of the foil on the wave. Definitely, yes, it makes it easy. Also from an ability
Easy.
perspective,
I wouldn't say,
easier.
yeah, I wouldn't say it makes it easy, Uh, doing surf foil requires a really, really good level of surfing, first and foremost. Anyone in my surrounding, but anyone I know around the world that enjoys surf foiling and do it at a good level is usually a really good surfer. Dave Kramer, Tom Cowell, Kyle Henny, Laird, Terry Chang. I mean, there are many really good surfers in Australia doing surf foiling. We are a few in Europe as well. We have so many people because people, when they watch foiling, now it's no more surprise to see a surfer on a wave. Even though there are people that have never surfed in their life, they know what surfing is about.
Yeah.
But now they see us in the water, above the water, sometimes just on the swell, not even in a wave which has broken. They understand, but they don't understand, and they are deeply touched by the speed, the lines we can do, and they usually don't resist. There's not a day where I go surf foiling. There's not a day that goes by without someone asking me, "But how do you do that? It's beautiful. Is there an engine below?" And it's really touching people, just the people watching.
Yeah.
And doing it is even better. There are still critics. Surfers are usually not really open to new things, and there are critics. There's some, there's no proper argument. Some things can be said against foiling, but some things can be said about any type of equipment.
Well, yes.
In the end, it's not an equipment that makes it dangerous. It's what you do with it. And I've always, I'm always saying this, whomever is asking me, so is foil dangerous? I'm saying, well, no more dangerous than crossing the road at the wrong time. And, I've never really hunted in my life. I'm not a fisherman. I don't have any culture of that in my family. My dad was not a fisherman. My dad was not hunting. So I've never seen really guns in my life. But, a gun on a table is not dangerous. It starts being dangerous when someone grabs it in its hand.
Yeah.
The gun is not the problem. Surf foil is not the problem. It's whomever you put on the board which can make it to be a problem.
Definitely.
And that is the same with the surfboard, with a jet ski, with a stand-up, with any equipment.
Yeah, definitely. So yes, so first of all, yes, I wanted to apologize to have said easy and not easier because
Surf foiling is not easy.
I was discussing with 2 days ago with Jack Coleman, that is a video maker in California, and the way he does his videos, they make look like every wave easy. And I told him, like, for me, it's very disappointing because I'm not like a great surfer, and I see those waves and I say, like, oh my God, I want to do it the same. But then I realized that the way he makes the movie, he makes it look like everybody can do it, but the reality is that there is a space, right? And nobody can.
Yeah.
And it's good. Otherwise, the waves will be overcrowded and overpopulated more than what they are today, right? And second, of course, it takes always like an athlete behind any sport, and. You cannot just jump and pretend to be a boxer, a surfer, or I don't know, a football player or whatever. Anyway, so the last six question, very easy. Please answer the first thing that comes up to your mind. They are the same for every guest of the show. The best surfboard that you ever ridden?
It was a fish that was shaped by Dave Parmenter
Okay.
for Rusty Carolina. And Rusty Carolina let me use one day at my car. And I was blown away by how I could surf with that board. And I think Rusty was surprised as well. And he gave it to me. And I've been all around the world with that board. I brought it back to France. I took it to Indonesia. I took it to Tahiti. I used it for many years. It was old, abused. And I broke it in another special place in Hawaii, not in Macau, where Rusty gave it to me, but in another very special place. And I was very sad. And I tried to get a copy of that board for many years from Dave Parmenter. And as we all know, it's very hard to get a board copied.
Mm-hmm. And that one, you don't have even the split half, or?
Well, yeah, I have the split half somewhere, but yeah, I've had a couple of copies shape. Maybe I should adjust my measurements because I'm maybe a bit heavier. But yeah, it was a special board, and it actually I have one of the few pictures that is in this book. Pictures of myself is one of those pictures with that board.
Okay,
because cool. It's a very special board.
Your favorite shaper of all time?
I think I may have answered this question partially because, but I've had the chance to interact with many shapers. It's very hard for me to choose. If I start from my first shaper in my hometown, who was a very gifted surfer and windsurfer back in those days in the 70s, 80s, where you could do everything, who now lives in the Canaries Island, to Mark Phipps, to Wayne Lynch, to Phil Grace, to Maurice Cole. I mean, all those shapers that have been in this part of the world, I've had the chance to interact. I was very fortunate to be able to meet and get a few boards from Dick Brewer, and it's very hard for me to choose because I haven't had just one shaper in my life. I was able to get different boards from different type of surfing. And, and for big wave surfing, my first toe board was a board from Dick Brewer. But the last one I got was made by a friend from France called Michel Laronde, the father of Tyler Laronde, who was living in Maui for many years. He pioneered the art of toe surfing in Maui and was, with us the first time we got to surf Belara. So being a big wave surfer himself and a shaper, I think he really had the good recipe to make good boards. And my best towing boards were maybe from Michel, but that's for one specific use. There's been many people I was able to interact with, and there could be more I would love to interact with.
To finish on shapers, maybe I should also speak about stand-up paddle surfing, which I've done a lot. And all my first boards for years and years were made by the Barlin family in France. France's oldest surfboard manufacturing family, who has welcomed many shapers in the 70s when surfing was not much in Europe. Philippe, the son of the founder, was in his mid 50s now, was very curious to shape my stand-up paddle surfing boards, and I'm so happy he did that. I also got a couple of boards from Robin Johnston, who was doing the contest on the stand-up world tour, especially at Sunset, as he lived in front of Sunset. And we became close. Actually, one day in 2016, I traveled to Hawaii for work, and I didn't have any equipment with me. And I could borrow one of his stand-up, fall in love with it, and he allowed me to bring it back to France. That was cool.
But now it's about foiling, and it's not just about the shaper, it's also about the nautical engineer, and it's very interesting and very challenging at the same time.
Personal question, your favorite song?
There's this singer from back home, Luis Mariano, very special singer from the 60s, 70s. I love playing this in Hawaii when I was in the World Cup of stand-up surfing, but I really love slack music from Hawaii. This is very special music for me, and there's not a month that goes by without me listening to slack Hawaiian music in my car back home.
Amazing. Your favorite surf spot, and if it's a secret, okay.
I'm really happy with what I have in front of my house. Of course, there are many more other places, but I like to enjoy what I have in front of me.
Okay, cool. Your favorite big wave surfer of all time? I think you answered on this as well. But
yeah, maybe to add another color, and because I spoke about Laird already, but I don't know, I spoke about Laird, I would have said Oscar Jones, and it's again a very personal answer, but it's a very personal question. I happen to know Ross pretty well. I was trying to help him as a team manager, even though he didn't need my help. And I've seen him, do crazy things. The world of big wave surfing is a very challenging world. There are not too many sponsors, even though Ross has been in a relationship with Quicksilver. He's one of the few lucky ones to have had a long-term relationship with a sponsor. But Ross is a very special human being. He won the ADI Cow. I was there actually for the 2016 ADI Cow, which he lost by not much to John Florence. I was there on the beach because we were working on this special project around inflatable vests. And he's a very, very special human being, not just for regular paddle surfing, but whatever it takes to go and search for big waves, he will do it. Whether it's jet skis or crazy trips, he's always ready, and he's a lot of energy.
Okay, thank you for sharing. And the last question is a little bit unusual, but at the beginning of our talk, we were discussing about family. So I like to know your best relationship advice.
Just like surfing, because I think a lot of surfing advice can be taken in many aspects of life. Be committed.
Yeah. And again, as in surfing, it's a pas donné, right? It's not a given thing.
Exactly.
Not a given thing. Fantastic. Thank you so much for being on the show with me today. And I look forward to talk to you very soon.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Un grand merci. Au revoir. Ciao.
Hi, it's me again. I hope you enjoyed our today's episode. If you want to know more about us, please follow www.thetempleofsurf.com and all our social media. Mahalo!